I'm in my happy place. It's day 3. Welcome to our final day of BoF Voices 2024. I'm Imran Ahmed, founder and CEO of the Business of Fashion, and it is a pleasure to welcome the BoF professional community from around the world to our global live stream from here in the beautiful English countryside. We've got an absolutely jam-packed day ahead of us with this morning's program, Global Culture and Creativity, followed by our final session, Live Your Best Life, later this afternoon. Don't forget to use the hashtag BoF Voices when you're sharing your feedback and photos and thoughts on social media. This is a highly anticipated session, as we have the first ever public talk between the new creative director of Valentino, Alessandro Michele, and his trusted CEO and partner, Jacopo Venturini. We'll also hear from the breakout artist Salman Toor, the CEO of Skims and executive chairman and On, 2 brands that are successfully challenging industry incumbents. We'll also hear from 2 leaders from the world of design, Jessie Lee and Benjamin Paulin, who will share their thesis on why savvy customers are turning their attention away from luxury fashion. But first, I am delighted to introduce as Devlin and Echo Eshin. Their work delves into themes of community, diasporic identity, and otherness in public and private spheres. Through those explorations, they create much-needed space for empathy and openness. During Frieze Week in London, the 18th century church of St. Mary le Strand was transformed with large-scale chalk and charcoal portraits of 50 Londoners who've experienced forced displacement from their homelands. 2 of these treasured Londoners are former BoF Voices speakers, Dennis Okwara and Dame Stephanie Shirley. Ez's impressive catalog also spans public sculptures at the Tate Modern and the UN General Assembly, as well as stage designs at the Royal Opera House, Olympic ceremonies, and for the likes of Beyoncé, U2, and Adele. For his part, Echo is the multi-hyphenate behind an Orwell Prize-nominated memoir, The Strangers. He was the first Black editor of a major UK magazine and the first Black director of a leading British arts institution. Ez and Echo are here to discuss how creativity can shift the narrative around otherness. Before we welcome them on stage, here's a short clip on the making of Congregation.
Hey, come in. Getting better?
Yes. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, I start by answering the door. I do not know anything except their name. And for 45 minutes, I preciously preserve that encounter with a stranger. I had been looking for many years at this stranded church on the Strand. It's called St. Mary le Strand. I sat in the church and I thought, what if we make a new congregation? A congregation of Londoners. So I said, let's do 50 drawings and print them big and arrange them like a tiered congregation, filling the whole of the inside of that church.
I was born in northern Uganda at a time where there was a civil war starting to happen. They started abducting, forcing people to join the rebel group.
May I ask, what age were you around this time, Dennis?
When I started to realize that this isn't right, I was about maybe 6.
It seemed to me really important that this was not an exercise of a group, a community of people becoming my muses or my sitters. They had to be co-authors for this project to work. So each person, when they received the letter of invitation to take part in the work, the invitation said, would you like to be a co-author of the work? The experience will be probably about 8 to 10 minutes, and it'll be like a kind of show. Only the performers are these drawings. So the drawings interacting with sound, light, projection will tell their story. Each of the people in this room, and the room feels really full of stories now, are resplendent Londoners, are breathtaking. They bring their gifts. And I sat in the church and I just thought of the three kings, people who come from afar, bring their gifts. And that's really what I would describe this group as. They are a congregation of Londoners. They are us. We are us. And they bring their gifts, as we all do, to this city. Thank you so much. What a pleasure to be here.
What a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for being here. First session on, is it Thursday? Thursday morning? It's been a week. Ez, it's been a pleasure working with you, working together on Congregation. I want to just start by asking a question. This project, Congregation, why did this project matter to you in the ways that it did? Why did you do this project, and why did you do it the way you did?
I wanted to encounter the layers of separation between me and others. I wanted to encounter my own racism, my own bias, my own separation. I was motivated because I observed that in 2022, we, as a town, a city, a country, opened our arms in a way I hadn't witnessed before to Ukrainian refugees. And it was beautiful. The schools were opened, the train stations were opened. My mother and father welcomed in Ukrainians into their home. They're still living there now. And I asked myself, why now? Why this particular community? And there might be an obvious answer to that, but I wanted to find the answer in myself. I wanted to understand more. So I went to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees and I said, just tell me the facts, please educate me. There are 117 million refugees, displaced people around the planet, and the number of 6 million Ukrainians is also the same number of people also displaced from Sudan. There are equal numbers displaced also from Afghanistan, from Syria. So these numbers are equal in many communities. What is the separation between us and those people coming to visit from Somalia, coming to escape? So why is it that at the same time I'm reading about the welcoming of schools and libraries and train stations, I'm also reading about the words being used like invasion of small boats. What is this distinction in language? And I thought, if it's at work in my community, it must be at work in me. It must be work in my very person. Whether I think it is or not, I must encounter it. So, as you saw in that little clip, a knock would come on my door, and I'm looking at Dennis, and I would answer the door. I knew only the person's first name, and I had asked them to wear a suit. It seemed important to me that I must destabilize my own preconceptions, biases, as much as possible. So everybody came dressed for a formal occasion, dressed in a suit. And I asked them to look into my eyes for 45 minutes without talking. And we put on a piece of music. We put on the Max Richter Four Seasons, which I later found out was written at the same time as that church was being built. I only discovered that later. But I thought it would be a piece of music that would relax people. I actually started off with a piece of Brazilian music, which is very beautiful, but it was a love song, and I felt actually quite uncomfortable after a while. Looking at some of my beautiful young men, I was just going, I was like, no, this can't do this. So I think I changed the music by the time Dennis came. And so I said, please look into my eyes and let's not speak. And by the end of 45 minutes, I was longing to know this person's story. And I think they were longing to tell me their story. And I can't tell you, if you've ever tried looking at someone for 45 minutes directly in their eyes, there's something about that encounter that, of course, makes both people vulnerable and open, and a sort of encounter with, I know this sounds a bit odd, but I genuinely felt like I was encountering the whole cosmos in each individual. So that was, I set out to encounter who I am, really.
Were you the same person by the end of that process?
I'm not the same person at all. No, I had not sat with people from 28 countries, let alone sat and looked into their eyes for 45 minutes. And I want to just turn to your project, actually, Echo, because in parallel, while I've been making these drawings that you see here, Echo's been writing a book, which I really strongly advocate. I think the suitcase was already too full, or else it would have been in your suitcases. I really advocate reading because it's a life-changing book. And I would love you, Echo, to read a little bit from it, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It's called The Strangers.
So this is a book called The Strangers. It's a book about blackness and being. I'm going to read the introduction, which explains that. Turns out you write a book, it's a non-fiction book. Turns out, after I wrote the book, I had to write a little foreword to the book to explain what the book was about. Although it's 400 pages, but it turns out it's helpful to explain. So I'm going to just read, rather than explain the book, I'm going to read the foreword to the book, which sets out both what the book is about, but really the aims and intentions involved in that, and as a consequence, potentially the parallels with congregation and with your work. So it'll take me about 3 minutes or so. The Strangers is a book about the lives of 5 remarkable black men: Ira Aldridge, Matthew Henson, Frantz Fanon, Malcolm X, and Justin Fashanu. 5 men of varied character and outlook who lived in different places at different times. Some of them are well known today, their legacies closely studied. Others have been largely overlooked by history. Famous or forgotten, a thread runs between them. Each was, in his own way, a pioneer, embodying and enacting striking change in his respective field and in society at large. Each was a traveller, and at one point in another, an exile, a figure in motion through a world that regarded him as alien. Each strove to reach beyond the constraints of race, to assert himself as fully human, fully alive. In telling the stories of these men, I haven't attempted to give a complete account of their lives. Instead, I focused on a period in time when each figure stands at a crossroads, grappling with the signal anxieties and ambitions of his era, alongside his own personal dilemmas. In some cases, that period runs over decades, and others, it spans no more than a handful of months, or even days. The structure of my narrative has been guided by the factual details of each man's biography, but I've also given myself license to conjure what the often limited archive cannot supply: the tone and texture of their inner lives. Toni Morrison said that black people are often spoken of and written about as objects of history, not subjects within it. In The Strangers, I seek to do the opposite, to move from looking at the black male figure to seeing as him. Through storytelling that intertwines the documentary and the imaginary, I aim to reach a deeper emotional truth that fact alone cannot offer, in order to create an intimate, effective portrait of each man. I realised very early in the literary process that to achieve this goal, I'd need to speak through the men's own voices. This idea of direct voicing became the second-person narrative which predominates through the book, and via which I've attempted to stand in my subject's shoes and to invite my reader to do the same. To do justice to these individual stories, it also felt important to evoke the dense web of Black diasporic history, culture and politics within which they stand. So the book also features a second strand, a series of short but expansive essays that counterpoint the character-driven main chapters. These essays range much more widely across place and era than the character chapters, introducing a broadcast of artists and writers, travellers and tricksters, and through them tracing the development of my own thinking on blackness and masculinity. This densely constellated and more than factual approach to personal histories seems especially fitting, given that the enterprise of simply being a black man, moving through a white world, frequently takes the individual beyond the everyday, into a charged space of performance, fantasy, and myth. The stories and stereotypes that frequently categorize black men as brutish or lawless are as well-worn and persistent as the fantastical idea of race itself, a socially constructed fiction without any basis in scientific fact, but one which nevertheless shapes how we see the world. Each black man is the heir to this legacy of caricature, which renders him simultaneously invisible and hypervisible. His existence is inextricably entangled with his representations in popular culture and the white imaginary. To live in such a state involves sustained impositions on one's personhood, from minor daily slights to heightened threats to your freedom and your life itself. It constitutes a feat of self-authorship under intensely hostile conditions, which remains, to my mind, inherently heroic. But black men are also denizens of what the poet Elizabeth Alexander calls the black interior, our abstract space, our space of the real, not real, far, far beyond the limited expectations and definitions of what black is, isn't, or should be. In writing this book, I hope to speak also to that zone of possibility, approaching each of my subjects from a position of not knowing and moving freely across time and place, memory and imagination, to encounter black masculinity not as a fixed state, but as an open proposition.
Beautiful. So, Echo, you did let me know that this book started out as a history of hip hop. And I want to ask you, having started there, how have you changed? What have you learned? What didn't you expect when you went on this journey through the footsteps of these five men and yourself?
So I started writing a book a few years ago. It was a very different book to this. It was supposed to be a history of hip hop. And I found myself, I wanted to go, at the beginning, I wanted to go deep into the roots of hip hop. So you go to the 70s and you go to the 50s. And at some point, I ended up in the early 19th century. And I felt like maybe I've gone deep, but maybe what I'm writing about isn't hip hop itself, but is actually the experience of black people writing and creating and living. Ultimately, that led me to this book, The Strangers. And the experience of writing it. In the end, look, this is a book about these five men that I described, but really it's a book about me. And I think almost any creative exercise in the end becomes about one trying to meet what's inside you, trying to sit with what's inside you. I'm a bit more raw as a consequence of writing this, because you have to open yourself up to the experience of living and being. You have to open yourself up to pain. You have to open yourself up to fraughtness. I say I have to open myself up to that process of feeling that I had to feel my way through these figures, which means I have to be open with myself about what hurts inside me, about what motivates me, about what moves me to write. You have to write with feeling. And actually the feeling, hopefully, the honesty you get to in that process doesn't stop when you get to the last page of writing, when you get to the full stop. It turns out after that, you open your eyes and lift your eyes from the page, the world looks slightly different. Your feeling of walking through the world feels slightly more sensitive. I don't know if you, in all the different creative projects you do, I don't know whether you encounter something similar, which is that the world feels slightly closer. A texture of the world feels slightly more finely grained. You're grateful for the light and the sun and the rain, but it also hurts a bit.
Echo said something to me last night when we were just chatting about what we might talk about today, and I asked this question briefly, and he said, I feel like I took off another layer of skin. And I'm just going to share a few pictures of the men that Echo writes about in the book, and in parallel, some of the portrait sessions, because it feels like we've been doing this parallel project of encountering the other, and through the other, through an intimate encounter with the other, encountering ourselves. And I wanted to bring up this project, not least because it was really in this project called Come Home Again, outside the Tate Modern in 2022, that the origins of the current congregation project were seeded. And I wanted to share with this group particularly that the instigation for this project was an invitation by Cartier to make an activation, a brand activation. So a really lovely team at Cartier had been asking me for a minute, and they said, will you make a work to celebrate Londoners? And it will be a 5-day activation with some budget. So I said, well, if you're going to spend this money, can we make a piece of art? Let's not make an activation that will end up in the landfill in 5 days' time. And let's not do it somewhere where it won't be rooted in a tradition of making art. Please, can we do it at the Tate Modern? And please, can we make it a piece of art? And can I keep it afterwards? And they said, sure. And I said, well, OK, you want me to celebrate Londoners. So I started to ask this question. Who is Londoners? Who are Londoners? Who are we? Who am I? And I went to the London Wildlife Trusts, and I said, who are the Londoners? They said, well, there's 15,000 species of Londoner, of which humans is only one. And that's not counting the 10,000 species inside each human. So I thought, actually, there's a ton of stuff I know nothing about. So I sat down for a year, and I drew 243 of the most endangered London species. And talking about taking off a layer of skin, it was while making those drawings that I encountered a continuity, a porosity between myself, the veins on my hand, the veins on a bat's wing. I drew 60 bats. Turns out there are 60 species of bats in London. The sort of shape of the knuckles on my hand, the shape of the edge of a bird's wing, the scales on my skin, the scales on a snake and a lizard, because there are some in London. And it was in that state of porosity that the Ukraine conflict began, and I felt a porosity in us and in me. And I guess coming back to the title of our talk, I wonder if you could reflect on that title a bit. Home is the other we carry inside us, and what that means to you as a phrase.
I mean, what I've been writing about, what I was so struck when you began to evolve congregation, this experience, how do we meet otherness? How do we understand strangers? How do we move beyond our sense of a structured society into a wider sense? And kind of the point really where I began was that I've never felt part of the us, potentially, that sits in Britain. Never felt part of a kind of secure version of a society. So I've always been interested in the space beyond, this porous space. And what I think, you're right, absolutely connects this project at the Tate to congregation is this awareness, this desire, this pushing that you've done to reach beyond the singular into the several, into the multiple, into a sense of, well, look, if we all carry ourselves forward, what happens when we sit or stand together? What happens when we stand as we and discover an us through that process? That seems to me exhilarating and important, utopian, but not without its fraughtness, not without its difficulty, because in that process, I think, there's a necessary path of self-discovery that takes place, which is really, I suppose, what we're talking about as well. You can't, it's easy enough to say, oh, we're all one people, or we're all one species, or we're all one set of interconnected species, but to do that, you have to do some work along the way. That work is a self-revelatory work, but it's also a work of active imagination. It's also a work of broad empathy. It's also a presumption of intimacy or connection, which I think is sometimes hard to get to. These fraught times of ours, elections, referendums, points of division, I think get into the proximity, get into the porousness, get into the kinship. We can't take it as a given. There's a set of work involved in that. And I think one of the things that I find interesting is that artworks and artists can be part of that process of opening up those paths to self-discovery and connection with others. And I think this is what these projects say to me.
I think we're running out of time. I'm going to very briefly flick through a tiny few more slides, just because this work is now about to be shown at Somerset House. Please read Echo's book. Please come and see this work. And what you'll see when you come to Somerset House is that what we've put on display is the room, the studio, in which all of these works were made, because it felt important to me to share the process behind making them. And we'll end with a portrait of Dennis Okwara, who is a previous speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ez. You know, I've been trying to get this woman to Voices for 7 years.
It was Dennis who got us here.
We met at a breakfast like 3 weeks ago that Dennis was hosting for his amazing foundation, Lumule Foundation. And I managed to convince her to come because she happened to be free. So thank you, Ez. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Now we're in for a really special treat. The Pakistani-American artist Salman Toor's work centers around brown, queer men in dreamlike domestic environments. Through these dreamscapes, one not only feels a comforting intimacy and aching loneliness, but the incessant anxieties of desires of modern existence that marginalized people know all too well. Following his 2020 breakout solo exhibition at New York's Whitney Museum, Salman's work has been shown in Beijing and Baltimore and Venice, where this year his work was included in the 60th Biennale. In 2022, 8 bidders battled it out at Sotheby's to acquire one of Salman's most celebrated and powerful paintings, Four Friends, driving the work to exceed 5 times its estimate and setting a new auction record for his work at more than $1.5 million. I'm so pleased that Salman is here today to share his story, his inspirations, and his unique creative process. This is definitely something that AI could never replicate. Please welcome Salman Toor.
Hi, I'm Salman Toor, and I'm an artist, painter. I live and work in New York City. I've lived there for 20 years and worked for 20 years, but I've had more success, I would say, in the last 8 years only. And just to clarify what Imran was saying before, I would say that the auction record was definitely not something that I gained from. It was none of the money goes to me. It was just a person who was like, "Oh my God, you're famous now. I better sell this." Um, so today I'm going to show you just 3 paintings, 2 paintings that I am proud of, and 1 failed work, which is in my studio right now, facing the wall, and I'm not sure what's going to happen to it. So this is painting that's up at the Bourse de Commerce in Paris. So if you're there, please check it out. 5 years ago, I would, if you said that I was going to show 2 paintings in a building that's as grand as the Bourse de Commerce, I would have just fainted. So this is a large-scale painting. It's about the same size as the projection. And this is a bit typical of me, I would say. I use green a lot as a monochrome color. It's sort of started off, I would say, as a fluke, like 5, 6 years ago. And there was something, I want to say, very glamorous, kind of inviting and dangerous and nocturnal about the color that draws me to it. So I would say, and this is the kind of typical composition in which I have an allegorical space in which people that usually from different backgrounds wouldn't gather, are able to come together. And for me, that sort of happens, I feel like in my own life, it's very incongruent. There are many different facets to it that they don't always make sense. But it's through painting that I feel like I make sense of my life. So a little bit about the process. I don't use models or pictures. This is all imaginary. It comes straight out of my head. For the first, I want to say, 15 years of working in New York, I wasn't really interested in contemporary art at all. Thought it was boring and depressing on purpose. And I'm really only interested in, I want to say, 18th and 16th century Indian and European painting. And to a great extent, that is still what I'm deeply interested in. A lot of the narratives in my paintings are a little bit autobiographical. There is no planning. I sort of have a big palette of paints and I go at it. There's no drawing underneath the painting. All decisions have to be made very quickly while the paint is wet. So, sometimes when I do a painting it just comes out of me, it's miraculous. And I feel like that's the kind of fix that I chase. And that's not always what happens because the decisions are being made very quickly and sometimes it's a complete disaster. So there are a couple of things in this painting. For instance, this little bit. This is a series of, I want to say, puddles. I call them fag puddles. And so fag puddles they occur in many of my paintings. They're sort of like piles of undone laundry. Sometimes they're like bits and pieces of people. There's something fabulous but also exhausted about them. Yesterday we were talking a lot about overconsumption and consumerism and the kind of waste and exhaustion that comes with it. And I feel like living in New York City for the past 20 years and having had success for the past maybe 5 or 6 years, it is that element of being exhausted with the kind of consumption that we do in New York City. And also maybe questioning the price of the freedom that I've, I guess, achieved by moving to New York, because I was born and raised in Pakistan in a very conservative and sort of middle-class household. As a very sort of femme, queer boy growing up, bullied quite a bit. And painting was my way of kind of escaping and trying to make sense of my world. So I feel like, what I really enjoy in storytelling in the paintings is that some of the protagonists in the paintings sort of relate to me. I mean, I feel like, for instance, in that sort of clown with the naked clown, there's something in that I feel like that's a part of me looking back at my conservative parents, dancing for them. I'm like, hi. And, but also this sort of, guy in this Sufi-like costume sort of whirling around I think of that as a little bit like myself. It's like, success happened very suddenly to me, and I'm very deeply grateful for it. I could never have imagined that for myself. But it's also something that made me feel a little lost. Because as a painter, my life is about hiding in the studio. It's not really about being on a stage, being visible. So I feel like, the characters sort of correlate to that. Another part of the storytelling in the paintings is that I love creating costumes, and I guess that's the part of it that relates to fashion. I loved looking at just like historical painting and the different sort of items of clothing in them. I'm interested in different kinds of silhouettes and pleats and flouncy sleeves. In this work, for instance, I imagine that people from various different historical backgrounds, different times in history, sort of fantastically like hanging out together and sort of dancing by themselves to music that would probably be incongruous. I painted instruments that I wanted to paint. Like, it's not that they were going to musically make sense. So, but there's a keyboard and a violin. There's a sort of flute player. Then I felt like there's particularly something about a plumed hat that really attracts me. So I wanted to paint a kind of Victorian gentleman up at the front with a sort of cloak and a singer that's sort of he's sort of vaporizing as he's singing. So this is the failed painting in the middle. This is a teeny tiny painting, and I sort of started off thinking, well, I really want to tell this story about that happened this summer. Like I was thinking about me and my friends. I had gone to Fire Island for the first time with them, and a lot of my friends were Israeli there. We were sort of like having a chat about what's happening in the Middle East while all these hot finance gays were kind of, seshing past us. And we had this wonderful house, and so, I started the right side of the painting, and it's the kind of paint that I use is very, very thick. It's gooey, and, on a small scale, I'm able to place the paint on, make a mess, and then try to control it. And usually it works. And on the right side, it did work. I was very happy. And then I was like, what am I going to do on the left side of the painting? I don't know. Maybe it should be a portrait. And I thought it should be this, like, sort of richly dark-skinned guy who's, like, caressing an animal or, like, some kind of puppy or something. But I felt like when I started off, it was just a little too contrived. I was like, in a sense, I was like, the empathy is, I'm not really feeling it. I'm also very scared to put the paint down on his face, and just, I don't know what his face is going to be. I'm confused. So I ended up doing nothing. Like, I feel like it is subjective, so that someone might say, oh, I like this painting, but to me, it makes me anxious, and I'm just like, oh my God, just take this away. Or like, I wish I could just cut this in half and keep that. So yeah, just to give you a little bit of background about the process. So what I'm going to do when I go back is just scrape off the left side. No? No? Okay, all right. Okay, thanks for helping me out. So this is the other painting that I had. It was one of those miraculous paintings that happened very quickly. It's part of a series of paintings that I did about thinking about imaginary people sort of crossing borders or at immigration. Obviously, those people aren't usually naked, but these ones are. And in a lot of my paintings, I tend to have start with a serious place and end up in a lightly humorous space. I like sort of Pinocchio-like noses or some cartoon elements to people who may be in a position of being judged or humiliation or some kind of suffering. I don't know why, like it just makes me feel that it saves the painting from kind of drowning into like self-pity, but I also enjoy the funniness of it, the marionette-like aspect of a person who, it's like this person may or may not have real feelings, you know. I tend to go for bodies that are elastic, like they're sort of cartoony, and they have tubular, sort of hairy arms and legs. I like to kind of tickle anxieties about ethnicity and cultural background and questions that an immigration officer might think about. It's like, oh, you know, how westernized is this person? Can you speak English? Are you clean? What about hygiene? So I guess, like, yeah, I enjoy doing that and kind of thinking about the kind of person who would be in this position, so that I have to sort of build a face. I'm just like, you know, and the way that I do that is like the guy on the left. I was like, I want him to have a kind of Orientalist face, like a hooked nose, and he's gonna have this cap, and then initially, I gave him a jacket that looked like really Aladdin. So I was like, oh, no. So because figurative painting is a kind of landmine of cliches, you know, everything has been done, really. Like, it's not that exciting, you know. It's exciting to me, but art historically, you know, I enjoy playing that game where I want the painting to work today. And for it to work today, it has to, like, just pussyfoot around so much cliche, which is in Indian painting, in European painting, there's a whole, it sort of plays with the histories of, you know, who is important, who is loved, who is foreign, who is a peasant. And I think that whether we are engrossed in Western art history or not, actually, that is very much a part of our imaginations, because that's how it is a part of the mainstream culture. It's what mainstream culture is made up of, really. Anyways, just when I was finishing the painting, I took their pants off because I was like, I'm just like curious to have them be naked. And so, you know, it began with, like, I was like, well, you know, I want them to be sexy. But they ended up being more sort of vulnerable. And I have to say that, like, autobiographically, like, I was also just thinking about coming out through painting. And, you know, when I did that, I want to say, like, 10 years ago, I did pay a price for it. Like, there was a lot of sort of threatening messages from my original culture. There was a lot of accusation of sort of betrayal and and sort of, like joining like a Western kind of thinking, Western liberal army. And I felt quite, I guess, like a part of me felt like one of these guys. And I guess, in a sense, like the painting also is asking, as they're holding flags, is like, is it possible to, what is allegiance? How do we pledge that, and to what? And just to finish off, I want to say, I paint. When I'm painting, I'm not thinking about this stuff at all. I paint because it's just fun, and sometimes it's not fun. It's like hell. But once a painting leaves the studio, it has a life of its own, and to me, it's the most important thing in the world. But it's just a painting on a wall once it leaves the studio. And hopefully, I guess, it gives pleasure, and to the viewers of the painting, it makes them more, it opens up a world that is nuanced and empathetic. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, from the world of contemporary art, we now move to the world of contemporary culture. Many fashion brands are realizing that operating across multiple cultural sectors has become a business necessity. In our social feeds, fashion competes with music and film and sports for our attention. Learning how to tap into other cultural sectors is something that many fashion brands are trying to do, but few have done it better than our next two speakers. The challenger brands that they have co-founded have used culture as launch pads to successfully challenge incumbents to become category leaders. Jens Greed is the co-founder and CEO of Kim Kardashian's Skims, the shapewear brand that is giving Spanx and Victoria's Secret a serious run for their money. The business was valued at around $4 billion in 2023, and a long-mooted IPO could be in the works sometime soon. David Allemann is the co-founder and executive co-chairman of the Swiss sportswear company On. Alongside fellow co-founders Olivier Bernhard and Casper Copetti, David has built On into the world's fastest growing shoe brand. In 2019, they recruited tennis superstar Roger Federer to get involved, and in 2021, On floated on the New York Stock Exchange with a valuation of $9 billion. Today, that has grown to more than $16 billion. But while Jens and David share much in common, how they got here is the result of two very different stories. To learn more, please join me in welcoming Jens Greed and David Allemann. All righty. This is going to be fun. As I mentioned, you're both operating in a similar intersection, commerce and culture, but how you got here, how you arrived here, is the result of two very different stories. So I wanted to start with the kind of founding stories of these brands, which is always, so interesting for me because it really helps you to understand kind of the initial spark. Jens, you started from culture. You had an existing relationship with the clan Kardashian. And you had to convince the world. First, you had to talk to Kim about this product. Tell us how you and Kim kind of came to this idea to launch a brand in shapewear, why you chose this category, why you felt like it was a category that was ripe for disruption, and why you thought, the kind of intersection with Kim's incredible following was a good launch pad for it.
Yeah, I mean, before brand, there's product. And you can't build a great brand without a great product. And I mean, I was a marketeer, and in many ways I still identify as a marketeer. You know, I'm an old ad man. David's an old ad man. But I guess we'll get to that later. Before you have an idea about a brand, you need to have an idea about a product. And I always say when people ask me about, you know, what is the story of Skims, or obviously marketing is visible. It's something that it's out there that people are partaking, even if they're not customers of the brand. But really, brands is about product. And it's number one, it's number two, it's number three, and then comes everything else. So about 3 years or so before we launched Skims, we started developing fabric. And I think of Skims...
Did you already know you wanted to do shapewear? Like, when you say developing fabric, I mean, part of the innovation of Skims is obviously the fabric, but like, fabric for what purpose?
Well, I think, you know, people use the term shapewear. I mean, it's a small portion of what we do. We launch with multiple categories, but you know, what I learned in life is that it's how you come to market tends to be how you are defined. And I think that goes for most brands, so I'll take it. I felt it was just a category where the customer was being really underserved, where there wasn't a lot of innovation. It was a multi-pack discount business all over the world, and people were paying too much for what they were getting. And all my thought process is around innovation, which is, and innovation can be two things. Innovation can be a fabric, or innovation that just wasn't in the market. You know, I think of David's, I'm so in awe of what David has built and his partners at On. And where would they be without Cloud Tech, this iconic branded sole? Where would Skims be without, you know, Fits Everybody or Seamless Sculpt, or some of the fabric innovation that we have? Where would Nike be without Air? Where would it be without Dry Fit? So to me, a brand is really about innovation and fabric first. So that's what we spent years doing. And at some point through that journey of exploration, it was just evident that, you know, there was a brand there.
And how did you know that?
I think that Kim had a view of a palette, of a woman, of an ideology even, and that I got personally very excited about trying to bring to life. And of course, brands grow and we evolve over time. But I think when people think about Skims, they think about, hopefully, you know, identifiable colors to the eye and identifiable fabric to the touch. That's really the foundation. And then marketing is always built upon that.
Okay. David, long before Roger Federer was even part of the On story, you and your co-founders identified this opportunity in sportswear, starting with shoes, in Switzerland. And I remember early on when I started reading and learning about On, it was like you had this like massive market share in Switzerland, this tiny little country. But you know, talk a little bit about your starting point in Switzerland, not necessarily known as a place for starting the kind of brand that you and your partners have built, but like what role and how did you build your product around innovation before tapping into the cultural side?
You know, I was fortunate that Casper and I have a friend, Olivier Bernhard, and he's a duathlon world champion, 6-time Ironman winner. So he had a lot of time to think about innovation in footwear. And he kind of asked himself, hey, why is it that we haven't seen really strong innovation in the outsoles of shoes? And how can we bring, instead of just kind of a better mattress underneath your foot, how can we innovate on the engineering? And so he had cut a garden hose at his home and glued these pieces underneath the sole to prove kind of actually you have an innovation technology that can give you very soft landings, but then compress and give you at the same time very responsive, energized push-offs. And
so wait, Cloud Tech started by taking a garden hose and cutting
Yes,
small
exactly.
bits and then layering it under. I mean, I imagine there's like some laboratory and all this stuff involved.
No, it was actually a carpentry workshop where he did that. So it was super, super scrappy at the beginning, but just to prove the concept. And so On is really an innovation brand at heart. And then, of course, when you do that in Switzerland and when you have these conversations, it's not just kind of, hey, let's do it, but it's kind of going back and forth. Isn't it too crazy to do that out of such a small market? And so in that conversation, we also talked about the industry at large and kind of these liberation moments. And I'm almost thinking about 100 years ago, there was a liberation moment in fashion because Coco Chanel decided to do pants for women. And so that had a decisive impact. And so when we started On, that was 15 years ago. So that was 2010. And we felt sports is the new liberation moment for fashion because sports used to be mainly happening on the weekend and sportswear was seen as equipment. But now, kind of over the last 15 years, sports got interwoven between life and work and sports. And so it's the new uniform. It's part of our personality. And so because it becomes part of our personality, it's also elevated to a whole different level. And so in a sense, it becomes fashion. And we saw an opportunity in that because, of course, that means also a whole premiumization of sports in the industry. So we're building the most premium global sports brand, but that's now. So at the beginning, it started very, very small.
And how and why did you get Roger Federer involved?
Well, that was much later. So at the beginning, it was super scrappy because kind of when you do an innovation brand and you have this technology, the advantage is that it's very visual technology. So for a young audience talks about the great Vistec appeal of On. So you discovered a lot. So it was very much grassroots. People saw the outsole. When we kind of were somewhere in a tube in London, we were approached, what is that? And so it was discovery, and then kind of runners started, their friends, their families, and that has been a gradual shift. And this discovery actually happened with Roger as well, because Roger posted in On shoes from Roland Garros at the French Open. And
he didn't have a sponsor at the time that required him to wear like...
He just kind of had quit kind of relationship with his current sponsor, so he was kind of in his own liberation moment, and he started to post on Insta, and we took that as an invitation to a date. And Switzerland is small, and so we had this dinner date, and so we just hit it off in a great way. We talked about fashion and sports and innovation, and he challenged us and said, hey, couldn't you bring Cloud Tech to tennis shoes? And so we said, hey, visit us 2 months later, in 2 months in our lab. And he came, he was excited. He said, how can I get involved? And we said, hey, you know, we're a young brand. We're not so much about big sports endorsements. So why don't, instead of us giving you money, why don't you give your money to us and invest in On? And so he became a co-entrepreneur.
Amazing. That is an incredible story. And I did this podcast interview our live interview during COVID with Roger, which was just the story about how you can kind of connect with someone that you don't know because they endorse your shoe, your product without any obligation because they really enjoy it and see the benefits. So that's interesting. So yesterday morning here at BoF Voices, our trusted sports correspondent, Daniel Yo Miller, together with some of our other team members, hosted a breakfast on this like phenomenon of the intersection of sports and fashion, which, as you said, has been kind of gathering momentum now for 10, 15 years. But something in the last, I'd say, 12 to 24 months, there's been an explosion. And Jens, Skims is also doing stuff with sports. So, talk to us about this intersection, this growing synergy between the sports world and the fashion world. Why do you think it's happening? Like, what's happened in the last 12 to 24 months that's just made it go?
Yeah, we started our relationship first with Team USA in the Olympics. We're an official Olympic sponsor and Team USA sponsor. We're also a partner to the NBA and WNBA. And beyond that, continue to find exciting moments in sports, like when we worked with Jude Bellingham just after he won La Liga and the week before the Euros. It's quite simple. I think we do live in a world, right, where our world are very vertical. We live in our own algorithm. We live in our own echo chambers. We are more divided than we ever been. Probably the only thing in culture today that cuts through, the only platform where we meet today as Americans, Europeans, tend to be sport. So sport is this great unifying platform where everyone can partake, and I think as a result of it, sport has never been more important to us, and sports stars are now becoming celebrity in their own right. So if you have a brand like Skims and you want to reach a broad demographic, not just be very important to the very few, but you really want to reach a country, sport is the platform to do it.
Okay. Do you think that fashion also has that element to it? Because when I was thinking about this observation, I think that for me, like one of the interesting things about this intersection is, yes, everyone is connected to sport, but everyone is also in some way or another connected to fashion. And you put those two things together, and it's kind of this explosion. I mean, David, is the fashion industry taking over sport, or is sport taking over fashion? Or like, what is this explosion that's happening?
You know, I think it's interesting. You could say that sports is the new fashion because it's really a moment where innovation becomes more important because it really in our lives it's an opportunity. Sports it's the big public moment, and I really love how Skims then taps into these moments and kind of creates the momentum. But then it's also in our lives, how can we decouple more? And we see from especially also very young consumers from London to Shanghai, just kind of this decoupling to nature. So, and that of course also means decoupling from your devices and really living in the moment. And so you want to have not just craft and provenance and heritage that are very much kind of connected to fashion, but you also want to have the innovation moment. How does my footwear, but also how my sportswear, how my apparel supports me in that activity? Now we're seeing, like, for example, in China, for young women, bouldering is the fastest growing sport because it's that moment where you're completely in the zone, and we heard so much about...
For those of us who don't know what bouldering is.
So kind of rock climbing. So kind of, it's probably the sport that you most have to be in the zone. It's deadly if you're not in the zone. And so sport is an opportunity to decouple from everything that is going on around us.
I could add to that, which is I think that athletes have understood that fashion is an accelerator, even a superpower, to build their own brand beyond the sport. And you see examples of that, I would say, weekly or daily. And some of our biggest stars in sport, we experience or we live with them or we consume the entertainment that they put out through the fashion that they wear, not necessarily just the sport that they practice. So I would say that fashion has become a superpower for athletes.
Okay. I mean, you can collaborate with other athletes and stuff, but your biggest star is Kim Kardashian. Last I checked, like roughly 400 million followers on Instagram, you know, the reach and visibility.
Yeah, many more than me.
Yeah.
A few.
Yeah. The reach is incredible, but how much of the success, like, could you have built Skims into what it is without Kim's reach? How much of her reach and her visibility? You said marketing comes second, right? So we got the innovative product, but without that marketing element, would you have been able to build it into what it is?
It's a hard thing to decouple one from the other. I think that the starting thesis has to be that the product and the brand, the product is so good that eventually it would find its market without marketing. But I could never have built Skims without Kim Kardashian, because she is a phenomenal creative director and the brand is a result of her creative vision and her product vision. So the answer to that is absolutely not. Without her social following, absolutely not in the speed that we did it, because it allowed us to have near global awareness, very early on.
Yeah, overnight almost.
Yeah, almost overnight.
Part of the formula that you and Kim have been using is to not, and it's similar actually, a story at On, is that you haven't stayed in your own lane. You haven't stuck to just working with Roger. You've been doing stuff with Zendaya, and Skims, Jens, you and Kim haven't just been focusing on Kim and her reach. You've been doing all these other things in sports and otherwise. Today, there's a special announcement about a new collaboration that we're going to reveal here at BoF Voices.
Yes, so first.
Do you want to tell us a little bit? And can we show the embargoed image on the screen, please? There we go. So tell us about Dolce & Gabbana and Skims.
So, this is our second large collaboration with an Italian fashion house. The first one was a few years ago with Fendi. I love what we did with Dolce. As all collaborations, I always say, first it has to be organic. It has to start from a point of friendship or mutual admiration for what one does. But also it has to bring something to the customer that they just haven't had before, or to both companies. And for us at Skims, we have a very defined aesthetic lane, right? So for our team, for our company, for our culture, the ability to go outside of those parameters and experiment creatively and push the brand to an aesthetic place where it doesn't normally live is exciting for us. And for Dolce, the ability to reach our 10 million customers and be able to give a Dolce experience at a very different, frankly, price point, but that still retains so much of the quality and integrity, was exciting to them. So I think we're both coming into a territory that one would never be in without one another. So that's always the best collaborations, and we're announcing this today, I think right after this talk, and it's launching on Tuesday next week, and I'm incredibly excited and I hope people will be excited about it as we are.
And if I'm because I received zero information about this, I just received an image. If I'm intuiting correctly from the imagery, it's taking some of Skims' innovative fabric, silhouettes, and shapes, and taking the Dolce & Gabbana DNA, I see like a leopard print and other things, and it's layering it on top of that product.
Yeah, so exactly that. This is not necessarily, this is product we would only do because we're doing it with Dolce. So for us, I have this philosophy, in everything I do, which is I and my team and my company is the customer, what we do. So we tend to pursue ideas, collaborations that we ourselves would like to buy. And I just measure everything from, are we as a team excited about what we're doing? We never think about the market. We don't do customer service. We don't try to be clever about the stuff. Am I excited about what I'm doing? Chances are someone else is too. If you're not that excited about what you're doing, chances are no one else is either.
Okay, one thing that the markets are excited about is a potential IPO of the Skims business. I said in my intro that David has had the experience of taking a company public.
I'll call him for advice.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to ask him for some advice in a minute. But can you comment on the IPO plans? Is that something that's definitely on the roadmap?
I've said before that at some point, Skims deserves to be a public company. We have institutional shareholders, and they deserve that optionality. I think in the building phase of a company, and Skims is aggressively expanding from a category point of view, our physical retail. We're opening flagship stores all over the United States and soon to be Europe and elsewhere. It's exciting to do that together with your team and away from the public eye. But there will come a time where that will be the case. It's just not right now.
Not right now, but sometime in the future. David, if you were Jens, thinking about taking a company public, what advice would you have to offer?
You know, probably the advice is take it as a stepping stone. So for us, it was 21 when we did this IPO, and it was quite a cultural moment because we were just coming out of COVID. And so we were actually running to Wall Street. So we had a group of 200 people, our team, that ran together to Wall Street, and we hadn't seen each other for a long time. So it was a cultural moment.
And a personal moment.
It was a personal moment,
Yeah.
but it was only a stepping stone for us. It created optionality to kind of also fund the future. Fortunately, we're a very profitable business, so currently we're funding our future ourselves. It was a liquidity event for some of our early investors, but it also gave us as founder the voting majority on. So to make sure that between kind of short-term pressures and the long-term and the future, we're at the steering wheel, because we're as an innovation brand, we're always about the future, like doing projects like Light Spray that we just unveiled in the Olympics that gives you the opportunity to spray a shoe in 3 minutes. And so this is something really, really hard to do, and we want to be able to continue to do hard stuff.
Okay, very quickly, because we are over time. One really important piece of advice from each of you on brands, entrepreneurs, designers who want to leverage culture, sports, film, all these areas that you've both done so successfully. What's your one piece of advice on how to do it right? Jens, you first.
Don't overthink it. I think most founders, most companies I've met overthink it. They spend too much time thinking, what is perfect? What is the moment? Who aligns most with us? I've always taken the approach that we do, and I try to build a brand that is in the intersection of culture and commerce, and that means that I'm looking for, how can I have a little part in this moment in popular culture? And I do. Some will be right, some will be wrong. That's okay. It's more important than do than not do.
Okay, David?
So my advice would be to be really, really close to the needs of humans, to the consumers. So it's great to have all the hype, but kind of what's really important for the customer. And in our case at On, our mission is to ignite the human spirit through movement. We feel if you move in whatever form, something not just happening to your body, but something is happening to your mind as well. And so On really tries to be very close to the consumer and be the brand that helps the explorers and the dreamers and probably even the rebels to ignite their spirit. And I think that's what's really, really important right now in this moment.
That was a great answer.
Congratulations to both of you. I'm super honored that we managed to get both of you here and that we made this really big announcement. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Our next speakers will argue that luxury fashion has lost its cool. According to Jesse Lee, founder of curated digital marketplace Basic Space, and Benjamin Paulin, who works to develop and preserve the work of his father, the legendary furniture designer Pierre Paulin, real connoisseurs are focusing their attention on rare design objects from the worlds of furniture, automotives, and sound, and away from big brand luxury fashion. Please welcome Jesse and Benjamin.
Bonjour. Hope everyone's having a good time. Quick shout out to my daughter Izzy, who's watching at home. All right. With that said, so why is design the new luxury? That's what we're here to talk about. A little bit of hyperbolic statement, but why is luxury fashion not cool anymore? I think there are many reasons, but COVID-induced are some of that. People are spending more time at home, working from home, doing Zooms, right? So naturally you're spending more time in your surroundings, are gonna be furniture and other things. Again, we're focused kind of more on millennial Gen Z, and I think part of it too is the social norm has also changed. People are dating more, consuming content, and of course, ordering food from their mobile devices sitting at home. I think the other part though that's interesting is that in some ways, luxury fashion has become commoditized, or another way of saying is overexposed. 10, 15 years ago when I got into fashion or collecting things, it meant something to find that Murakami bag that Kanye's carrying and finding a certain sneaker. But I think now we see it anyway amongst our friends, more and more people kind of dressing the same, or perhaps, it's become just another thing that you do. All right, so what is next? And this is why we're here. I think this is Imran's favorite slide. In our opinion, it's the two-door G-Wagon and the pull-on dune sofa that Frank Ocean is laying beside.
He doesn't like this picture, actually.
What's that? He doesn't like that photo, you did tell me. That's, by the way, Stefon Diggs. If you don't know who that is, he's probably the stylish American football player who's also very into fashion. Happens to have a two-door G-Wagon vintage, also many things from pull-on. Some of the other items that I think, a lot of people that we're friends are into, hi-fi audio, a MaxSlam chair, a Gaelanti table. There's something about collecting something that nobody else has. And I think discovery used to be, what really, catapulted fashion. But I think now it's sort of home design related. All right, so who are some of the people that you would recognize that are into design? Maybe you can start with Brad Pitt and
this is the studio in Miraval that we participated to, but we didn't design. We worked with Damien on this, and I think Brad Pitt is a big fan of design, so it was an amazing project. I think now it's maybe the best music studio in the world, and everybody's going there, from Trav to Justin Bieber to Kendrick Lamar. Everybody went to the studio now.
Then, of course, Travis Scott, who I believe has 3 dune sofas from you.
I don't know if I can tell that.
Oh, sorry. Well, I just spilled the beans there. Elsa Husk, obviously a model, but she too has a vintage two-door G-Wagon. And then, of course, that's a recent cover of Diplo with his property or house in Jamaica that he put together. And then, last but not least, obviously, we had Jens earlier with Skims.
Yeah.
Kim Kardashian's a big design fanatic and also a collector of pull-on.
Yeah, actually, we made the piece for Kanye, but she kept it. This is what she kept.
There you go.
And she changed the color.
All right. Having said that, though, there are luxury fashion brands that we think, are authentically, leveraging design as part of what they do. So Bottega Veneta and Matthew Blazy, the last couple of shows you may have seen featured, furniture, and Jonathan Anderson and Loewe also, I think, have done a really good job of integrating design. And then, of course, yesterday's guest, Jacques Mousse, that's a Gaelanti collection that they launched not that long ago. And so who are some of the designers? In many ways, I think they are the new creative directors, artistic directors that could lead culture. That's Max Lamb, actually UK designer, Samuel Ross as well, a good friend of ours, Sabine Marcellus. And then last but not least, another friend of ours, Devin Ojas, who's sort of bringing back this hi-fi audio movement. A lot of things are getting more, becoming more analog. And Devin's done an amazing job with the speakers. And I'll sort of leave you with a couple of images featuring pull-on stuff. And I would love for Benjamin to tell a little bit of story behind how it came to be.
Yeah, so just to quickly introduce myself, I was not really destined to be in the design business. I started my career as a rapper when I was like 15 years old. Like, my father was not the big fan of rap music, but he was kind of proud that I was doing something that was my personal choice. And so, strangely, after he passed in 2009, I felt like really the need to connect with him in a different way. I was not interested at all in design. I just grew up in his environment, so I infused in it. And so I went into the archive after he passed to sort of, I think, create a new relation with him. And so I was obsessed with the rejected pieces, meaning the pieces, some of the pieces my father created in 60s, 70s were very famous, but other have been just prototyped and rejected. So they gave it back to him. And this is the pieces I grew up on. So actually, to me, they were the best, but nobody knew them. And at some point, I had the occasion, I think, thanks to the fashion business, actually, the first person who really helped me was Azedine Alaya. So once I went to an exhibition and I saw a prototype my father created and I grew up on. And I was very touched and moved by the fact that it was now a museum piece. So nobody can technically sit on it anymore. So it's great that it's in a museum, but at the same time, very sad that it loses the function, which is very important in design. And so the same day, I was invited by Azedine in one of his beautiful dinner around the Schnabel table. And I was next to him. And at this moment, I was a bit shy and I didn't know what to tell him. And so I shared with him this emotion I had in the exhibition. And then he told me, like, tell me how much money you want, and I will give it to you, and then you can produce one for me. And so there will be one out of the museum. And so this is really how it started. And then I think, thanks to his influence, then we made project with Louis Vuitton, the first cruise show of Nicolas in Monaco. Then we met Michael Burke, our
Shout out to
friends.
Michael Burke, yeah.
Yeah, and so Michael Burke also really helped us to make to Meissen the first ever exhibition producing those pieces. So they've been very, very helpful for us. And then at this moment, we've been asked by, I would say, like almost all the fashion brands, from the best to the worst, to collaborate. And so my wife, that is my partner, like we are really 50-50 in this business. She was coming from the fashion. She was working for a long time with Michel Enrico Wens. She was doing like a very architectural knitting called Le Moine Tricot before. And when we started to work, she was very, she told me we have to say no to everything because we don't want to get, because fashion is amazing, but also fashions can kill you very quickly. So we decided like we have to move from that and we have to build our company very slowly, organically, and not go crazy and do everything. So this is what we did. So we are still a very small team. It's a very small business, but I'm seeing it a bit as a sort of a foundation and also a commercial project that is funding this foundation. So we are doing exhibition, we are doing books, and we are doing projects all around the world. Like tomorrow, I open an exhibition in the Donald Judd Foundation in New York. We are doing a project with Travis Scott in Vegas this weekend. And we have many, many projects like that. And so we are very excited to continue. I'm sorry, I was long, no?
No, I know. Yeah. Benjamin told me, yeah. So we'll kind of talk about what's coming up next, but he's being modest in a sense that, you know, you're saying no and there's a lot going on. But I think culturally what's really important too is not long ago, a couple of weeks ago actually, a rapper named Westside Gunn had a song called Pull On, Pull On, Pull On.
Yeah,
so it's in the cultural
entrance.
zeitgeist. Yeah, and I think what's really interesting, you know, he mentioned his wife Alice, and it's a family business. In many ways, it's analogous to, let's say, an Hermes, or we talked about, you know, Balenciaga, but why couldn't, right, Pull On, Pull On, Pull On be the next big luxury brand, house, family-owned?
This is, of course, something we are a bit crazy, so we like to think to everything. So my father really have a style. So in many ways, this could be developed and create a real project. But for the moment, we are not at this stage. I think we really have a lot of work to do with like museum work and continuing to develop those pieces. So we're gonna get it slowly.
Yeah. The one thing that I also wanted to talk about though is, I guess, you know, I sped through the slides because we had a lot of images, but, you know, love your opinion too on, right? Like, why is design the new luxury? And as, you know, we're connoisseurs of sort of, I guess, culture and largely in part because we're influenced by fashion, music, arts. What do you think is the reason?
Oh, why is design
the new luxury?
I don't know about the word like luxury, because I think my father was really anti-luxury style, because I think now everybody can buy luxury. So I think luxury now is, in our case, is more the access. We don't have any retailer. We don't have any reseller. Like, basically, I'm the only one person you can call when you want to buy a piece from us. So it's like
you basically have to slide into his DM to get one of the Dune sofas.
So it's very. So I need to. We were working a bit like a gallery. So we want to. We don't produce so much. So I need to be sure where the pieces are going. We don't want to. We want to be sure of who is collecting it. Like what is the house? What is the project? Because when you can protect your product, then I think you can stay longer with this. And this is what we do, exactly like a gallery, I think.
And I mean, I think one of the amazing things that you and Alice do too is you actually use your home as both a showroom, gallery, and an experience, right? So even during Paris Fashion Week, sort of become a thing for a lot of, especially Americans that are getting into design, to pay a visit to Benjamin's home, which essentially is archival.
For us, it was making sense we have a house, like we have to show it in our house with our daughters, with our life, because actually, when you want to buy furniture, I think, like in my case, I want to see it in a concrete situation where it's used, not in a showroom where it's like perfect, like it looks like it's a 3D render. Like I like it to be alive. I like it to be used, and I think our client, at least, and friends, like I think this is what they are searching with us, like something that is more maybe authentic, something that is happy also, because this is the big difference with also my father's design, is that my father was not trying to make style. He was like really trying to modernize things, to improve life for the people. So this is what we are trying to create with those pieces. That was the dream that never came true, and that is now like very existing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last thing I'll end with is, again, I think design can mean a lot of different things, but ultimately it is about discovery. And I think curation is a word that gets thrown around a lot. And now with technology and AI, obviously it makes things a bit more complicated. But I think what was exciting for me, and even Benjamin and I have just gotten to know each other for about a year or so, but this is kind of what excites, right? Not only myself, our friends, the community at Basic Space, Design Miami, a lot of the artists, celebrities, and talent that we're friends with. So I'd love to just like maybe finish with, if you have parting ways on like what's the next big thing, and design-wise, you guys have worked on a lot of projects. What's new?
Like my biggest project, actually, of course we have those very cool exhibition coming, but my biggest project is we are building a sort of a museum, but in the mountains in Les Cévennes, where we are producing. We have this workshop with 9 people, and we are building actually a museum where I will place like something like 350 pieces that we collected in the last 10 years with all the archives of my father. My ambition being to invite all curators from all around the world and to build exhibition and simplify how to create exhibitions in museum, and to be able to lend everything and to make it simple. Yeah, this is my big project.
Yeah, I can't wait to visit that. Well, thanks everybody for your time, and Imran for hosting you.
All right. Over the summer, our editor-at-large, Tim Blanks, and I both spent time with Valentino's new creative director, Alessandro Micheli, to learn about his vision for the fabled Roman couture house. One thing became evidently clear in those conversations. One of the reasons Alessandro was drawn to Valentino was because it would reunite him with Valentino's CEO, Jacopo Venturini. Alessandro and Jacopo first made magic at Gucci alongside CEO Marco Bizzarri when the luxury mega brand quadrupled its profits after a period of slow growth in the post-Tom Ford era. I remember at the time being struck by their approach to creating desirable luxury products rooted in a rare partnership, connection between design and merchandising. There is a special symbiosis in their pursuit of creativity in business based on a strong emotional connection and a shared passion for creating beautiful things together. In their first ever joint talk, Alessandro and Jacopo will join Tim Blanks to share their plans for Valentino, go inside their unique creative process, and reflect on the luxury slowdown. To close our session on global culture and creativity, please welcome Alessandro Micheli and Jacopo Venturini with Tim Blanks.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Welcome, Alessandro.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everybody.
Yesterday, you made a personal appearance at Dover Street Market with the new collection. How did that go, first of all? I'm curious who came?
Friends.
Alessandro, you answer or I answer?
Some friends. And yeah.
Some clients.
Some clients.
Some fans of Alessandro. A lot of fans of Alessandro, I would say.
This is what I'm curious about. What are your fans saying when they show up at Dover Street to meet you? Are they saying, we've missed you, welcome back, thank God you're back?
All these things.
All these things.
Yeah, it's a lot. Because you don't know if you are, I mean, they put so many things in you. They were students from the St. Martins. And yeah, it's beautiful because, I mean, I'm surrounded by love, so I'm lucky. Yeah, it's about, you know, sharing nice things and yeah. And I was with Jacopo just chatting, and I don't have so much time when I'm there because people want to take picture and saying nice things. So you have to give them something.
Is it common for the designer and the CEO to make appearances together like that? Is this a rare thing, would you say, when you're launching a collection?
I think that sometimes happens.
Yeah.
I think.
Sometimes I think it happens.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, it's not rare. I'm not sure. I don't want to say. I mean, in the past I did it. I mean, in a different way maybe, but.
No, what I'm getting at is that, and what we're talking about here is the emotional connection between creativity and business in Valentino. Your particular connection does seem quite unusual, and I want to talk about how it came about. How long have you known each other?
I mean, we've known each other, I think since 10 years, probably more.
10 for
12.
sure.
2015, we are in 2024.
Almost, yeah.
Almost, yeah, 10 years. And I think that our relationship, it's special because Alessandro is special. And it's really based on trust, respect. When we talk about work, there is no competition between us. Of course, we do two different jobs, but in order to do our jobs in the right way, considering the way we want to do it, so with an emotional involvement, which is very important for both of us. There are no, I would say, overlapping in our job, but there are already discussions between us on things that. If I comment something, or if he comments something about something about retail, or something about production, or something about something else, I take it always as something that we should work on, because we should always improve. We are human beings and we make mistakes, and it's very important to work with someone that you respect and that you value the opinion, in order to improve every day, because we are human beings, so we need to have someone that we trust.
Well, you worked together at Gucci.
Yeah.
And you worked very, very well together at Gucci. Were you just looking for the opportunity to reconnect with Alessandro?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all very naturally, I would say. Of course, when there was the opportunity to call Alessandro, I call Alessandro. I share my vision on Valentino with Alessandro, and I also investigate on how he was feeling about Valentino, if he really likes the brand. For me, it was something very natural, because I thought that with his enormous creativity and with his eyes that always looks at things in a different way, he was the right person to connect the heritage and the new vision for Valentino without losing the heritage. What I think it's very important is that, I mean, for me, Valentino is something very personal, because I mean, I work there this is the third time that I come back in Valentino. So, you know, it's not something that happens so often. And it's also, in a way, a gift from life that you're able to, you can go back to the same company and in different roles, and you arrive to the role of a CEO where you can do what you think should be done according, of course, with the shareholder. And what it was important for me, it was since the beginning to reposition Valentino as a maison de couture, because Valentino was born as a maison de couture, and these are the roots. And being a maison de couture means, these are two words that has also a very important semantic meaning, because maison means home, and so it means a place where you feel comfortable to stay. But at the same time, couture means obsession for details, be able, to do exceptional craftsmanship, creativity at its maximum level and its maximum level of freedom. But at the same time, couture means a special relationship between, a very intimate relationship between a premier and the client, because the relationship that there is between the two is very intimate. And what I thought was that the two words, first of all, the repositioning of the maison, where it should be and where it should naturally be, and where it deserves to be, and as a maison de couture. But then these two words are really key, in a way, to build a culture inside the company. And I really think that the culture is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing that you should build in a company. It's the most difficult thing to build in a company, because it takes a lot of time. You do 4 steps ahead and 3 steps behind on a daily basis, so it's very stressful. But if you have a strong creativity, you can support the strategy, you can support the growth. Having said that, go back to your question. This was completely, let's say, embraced by Alessandro. And what was also important for me was that Valentino has a past that is a past and an heritage that is really obvious, I would say, but there is also a lot of hidden past, of past that is not so obvious. And since I work with Alessandro so close in Gucci, and I know his passion for what has been done before and then for beautiful things, I thought that with his eyes that to me look at things in a way that I don't even know how he's able to do, but I'm always curious because there is a freedom in his eyes and a creativity in his eyes that is unbelievable. He always opened also my eyes. I thought that it was really the right person. I really believe that it was really the right person to be able to work with the heritage, putting himself, but being respectful of the heritage, which I think that for a maison like Valentino, it's very important because the respect of the heritage, I think it's something that it's very important when you work in a brand that has an important history behind. Otherwise, it's an empty box.
So you said you don't know how Alessandro does it. Let's ask him how he does it. When you got the phone call from Jacopo, were you surprised?
No, at all. No, because we spoke so many times. I mean, first of all, we are friends. And yes, I mean, I think that it's been very easy for me because it's... when he left Gucci, I mean, it was a long time ago, I really understood what means when you lost someone that is very capable, to feel the things, the creativity, the conversation. Yes, I mean, I was not really surprised because first of all, I didn't know that, I mean, I already knew that the other creative director was leaving the company, leave the company. And I think that we dreamt together the same thing. So when he called me, I was in the middle of a kind of, very special moment because I was trying to choose the right thing. And at the very end, like in a date, in a love affair, that you are trying to plan everything, the house, the furniture. Yeah. I mean, you change your mind and you think to sell the house. And I sold it. No, I'm joking. I mean, but I was really happy because I was thinking, oh my gosh, how would be work with someone that you are such, that you admire, but also you feel it as a good companion, a partner in crime, that because we were usually, talk about fashion things, so many, And I was not surprised. I was just, when you are dreaming about that call, maybe, and it happened, and it's about, I think it's about love,
So would you say Valentino is kind of a love affair then?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that it's a special place with a special soul, very different to an idea of a brand. It's like that you must care about this house, this home, that is a real home. It's the place where, the founder, but not just the founder, the person that loved so much to make that dream happen. I mean, everything is still there, all the things, the clothes, the chairs.
It's a maison.
It's so true. I mean, you really feel it. It's not about suppliers, factory. It's about trying to make a dream, try to make something about love, and so I like the feeling that you find inside.
Was it at all intimidating to move into Valentino's house?
At the beginning, yes. I was very stressed when I came the first time. I mean, I was very happy because I was with him, but happy in the way that I felt very protected. He did everything for me. Like, I mean, as you know, I mean, I'm living in Rome and he's living in Milan, and he came for a month and a half, almost. Two, yeah. No, I'm not that good.
So much difference.
I'm not that good with the time, but yes, maybe 2 months.
Just for joking.
And but it's been, I mean, it's such a beautiful time, because we had the opportunity to really chat and plan everything and
work.
Yeah, that it's the translation of a good way to work is to live, to have a nice day with the right person, so yes. I mean, at the beginning, I was very intimidated about the idea that I had on the second floor, also all the tailors and I think 85 people almost.
Which you'd never had that before.
No.
You'd never had an atelier before.
Never. I had something in Rome for a special project, all that amazing dress that we did. But it's different, I mean, this place has like a heart that didn't stop, never. So you are like, sometimes you feel that you are one of the people that try to work with them. I mean, they are stronger than you. You feel it. I mean, but not because it's not about, who is the boss. It's about the heritage that they are keeping and the things that they saw, the things that they... I mean, it's a part of a might of Italian fashion. So yes, I felt in another place. I mean, I was not in a brand, I was like getting inside a gate that I knew from my childhood. I mean, I passed by a million times with my parents, my dad, going to Spanish Steps and Via dei Condotti, there was like a place,
I love the story you tell about seeing Valentino and Giometti, his partner, you assume they were going to check out McDonald's the day that it opened in Rome. I love the idea of those two immaculate, those visions of extraordinary, I don't even know how you describe them, masculinity, going to McDonald's for a burger.
Yeah, they were with the few of the little dogs. I think they were like just curious, probably, or they were getting out from the office, the building. I don't know. I mean, I was like a teenager, and I had this girlfriend at that time that she loved to go there because it was the first McDonald's the Italian McDonald's, so it was like the temple of teenager, and I mean, very different for me because I hated that place. I can say, I didn't eat nothing at that time. I mean, and I saw these two incredible people, so chic, so different, but I think very curious and fun. And I think that they both just someone for them, French fries or something like this. And someone told me, because I saw both of them from the back, and a friend of mine, he told me, oh, he's Monsieur Valentino, Mr. Valentino. And I was, oh, that's incredible. I mean, I was thinking that God doesn't really walk in the street, you know, so. And yeah, I mean, it's almost the metaphysical idea that I have of Rome, you know, there is a city where you can see very strange things.
You have the Pope.
Yeah,
you have the
Valentino,
the president,
the president,
and you have Valentino.
Valentino, and yeah, I mean, years and years ago there were also many directors. They were like gods, like Federico Fellini, Luchino Visconti, and many Antonioni, and yeah, very full of artists. I think the time when Valentino started was really like a very interesting place, you know, full of interesting people.
Now that you're embedded, you've settled into the house. What is your feeling about it now? That it's yours now. How do you feel about it? The legacy that Jacopo is talking about, the heritage, but also your eyes. He said he doesn't know how you do it, but you look at something and you translate it into your language. So how is that going?
I'm trying to do this process in the most easy way, you know, without boundaries, without. I try to feel not, you know, the power of the heritage of the brand, of the archive. I try to be a friend of this amount of things. I try to be gentle, and I mean, my position is always, you know, to bring me in that place. It's always me in that place. It's not my place, you know. It's me walking in that place. There is, in a way, changing as something very familiar, but yeah, it's like half and half, you know.
Do you feel like an eternal visitor then, in a way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a good position, you know, because you can discover many things. It's like that you have more feed, you know. I don't know, maybe one time we were talking about it with Jacopo because we share many things, and I was thinking maybe there's gonna be a time that it's gonna look more me than Valentino, probably. I don't know. I think that I like the ambiguity of the things, you know. I prefer to be in between to make the people crazy, like, oh, it's him doing things. It's not Valentino, it's Valentino. I mean, there is always, you know, a conversation. And yes, it's a strong conversation because I think that me and him and with Jacopo, I mean, we have a strong vision. So yeah, it's such a big thing, always.
Do you know when you say it will look more like me than Valentino, what do you look like then? What does that look like?
I don't know. I mean, I think that I polarize the audience in some ways. You know, there are people that hate me in a very strong way, an aggressive way. And it's so fun, you know, because, I mean, I don't care. No, I don't care at all because I'm too old, you know, to care about all these stupid things, you know. It's like, I mean, yesterday I was looking on Instagram, there was a picture of me just walking in the street because I finished to work and I was just looking and I'm in a window of a shop. Yes, I had like a straw shopping, a crocodile bag, maybe a pair of Crocs. You know, I can't remember. I have like a tapestry jacket. I mean, yes, maybe things that didn't really talk the same language, you know. And I was just relaxed, and I mean, I didn't imagine. I mean, it's something that happened very often, and people were like, where he pretend to go? Why is wearing the straw bag? It's winter. I mean, it's no. So just to say that it's a crazy word, you know, and people. I mean, there are many people that maybe share the same thing. That being me, I think that I don't know. I mean, maybe you should talk with my therapist. Instead of me. I mean, I don't know. I know that
she's very happy with you.
She's very happy with me. She's very happy with me for many reasons. I'm happy with me because I'm free. And I think that is something that I must preserve. And I feel really bad for the people that are so aggressive in front of the freedom of someone else. I think that is so, I don't know, not human, you know, because it means that you have something in your life that is not really working well. And it's, but by the way, getting back to your question, being me, it's more about being sincere. That's it. I mean, enjoying the things and feeling yourself as a kid. Easy. Yeah, maybe.
Jacopo, working with Alessandro, has that experience changed you? Or have you changed him? Or have you changed each other?
I don't know. You should ask Alessandro if I have any influence. Of course, it's not really working with him, but knowing him that has changed me. Because he's a very free person. And is always in a good mood, which is something that I'm not. So, but with him, I'm always in a good mood. Then it's easy to make me. I mean, it's not easy, but I mean, I don't always start the day in a good mood. He's always in a good mood. To me, it's something very important. And then he's really free. I mean, he doesn't really care about, as he was saying, doesn't really care about the judge of the other people. And I think that what he just said, it's really the most important thing that really also influenced me. The fact that if someone is judging you for the way you are, you shouldn't be. You shouldn't get this bad influence, but you shouldn't not really care about that, because there is someone else in front of you that has something to deal with and is not able to do it. And I think that this, in knowing him, was very important for me. Working with him is, you know, I have a lot of respect for creativity. Creativity is everywhere, I would say, in everything that we do. I can be creative also in my job, but there is a level of creativity that to me is the genius creativity, which belongs to really very few people. And I think that Alessandro is one of the few people that has this genius creativity. I really admire that, because it starts from a real freedom. And when I say that his eyes look at things in a way that always surprise me, it's because I think that again his eyes that starts from that has a vision of things that always open also eyes of someone else in a way. You always see things in a very interesting way, and I've always been in my job. I mean, in my previous job, it was merchandising that I have not lost right now, because I'm still supervising merchandising. I'm a GMM at interim, but I have very good people in merchandising working on the collection. But let's say that the maximum expression of working with a creative has been with Alessandro, because his aesthetic is an aesthetic that is very peculiar, and you really have to understand that. And in order to understand that, you have to be very humble, and you have to ask also questions and to try to understand. Then there is a connection between us. Sometimes I don't even have to ask him because I understand it. But then I think that, my job is really to bring this very high energy that there is in the creative process, which is a fuel generator. It's a fuel. It's an energy. It's a very big energy. For me, it's an incredible energy, and to bring this energy until the client advisor and until our clients. That's why I was saying that our company is really human-centric and creativity-centric, because there is a big organization that should be in the back end and nobody should see it, but that allows this creativity, this energy, these ideas translated into the real world without losing, any single piece of this energy and this creativity.
We could call it synergy as well between the two of you. What do you? We're a bit over, so this is the last question. But what do you expect from this synergy in the future? What can we expect from this synergy in the future? What have you got planned? In other words, we've got your first haute couture collection coming out.
I'm not really so good to plan things. I don't plan that much. But I'm positive because I'm working so well with Jacopo in the company. It's a big challenge for me. So for me, it's positive when I have to experiment different things, as you said, like the couture. I like when I feel myself as a guest, experimenting things that maybe are a little bit different. I'm very positive because it's the right environment to make beautiful things. And as Jacopo said, before, it's a mutual thing. I feel very protect. I know that I can call him every time I want, just to be aligned, to share things. We are building everything from the stomach, you know what I mean? So that's why I was saying, planning and not planning. Because I'm understanding that, you cannot really plan in fashion. And what is happening, outside in the business, it's that they thought that they could plan everything, but you cannot. And so I would say that I feel myself like in a little beautiful garden. I'm gonna put in the middle of this garden, I think the most exotic, plant that is gonna be the couture that I didn't do never in my life. And I'm happy, and I think that it's an easy thing, to say that when you are in the right place with the right people, it's easier. It's hard because this job is hard. You can do it without being exhausted, because it's exhausting. You are with your job every day, every minute in your bed, during breakfast, after breakfast. yeah, you're talking with your boyfriend and you're thinking about job. You're trying to get it connected with other people, but if you are in the middle of something, yeah, it's a lot of things. But I'm very positive, and I'm happy. You know, I would say that I hope that nothing change. Yes.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do we.
Can I add something, Tim? Sorry.
Yes.
No, I think that, I mean, I totally agree with Alessandro. Of course, you should, I mean, we have a strategy that I think it's very clear of where the brand, where we reposition the brand and where we would like to go, and which are our value, which I think are again very important because they build the culture. But at the same time, I think that what Alessandro said, it's very true, because we ask ourselves questions on a daily basis. So I think that in the contemporary world, I think that, but I don't know, maybe probably even in the past, you have to ask yourself question every day. You have to put under discussion what you are doing on a daily basis. And I think that this is not a weak point, but I think it's just the reality of being a human being that are aware of the fact that things change, things evolve, and you need to get the feedback of the market and then use it in the way you think it deserves to be used, but it helps you to make you think, you know.
So that was
within
the
a
subject,
framework.
Yeah, that was the subject of our talk, the emotional connection between creativity and business. So there it is. You just defined it for me. Thank you very much, both of you. We actually are we way over? There's a little film.
I think
We're over.
It's gonna mean you're gonna be late for lunch. Are you sure it's okay? Okay, so this is
Thank you.
I think it's Alessandro. You stay. Yeah, this is I think it's Alessandro's holiday campaign.
Avant le début.
Yeah, it's the pre-collection. Yeah, the first thing that I did.
Okay, should we have a look?
Exclusive.
I tripped and fell over the line.
Clothes by Alessandro Michele for Valentino. That's filmed by Glenn Lutchford and music by Brian Ferry.
The genius.
Genius.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So wonderful. We're going to do this again really soon.
Thank you.
Grazie.
And I love
See you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to BoF Voices 2024. Today's programming will resume here at 3 p.m. London time with our 5th and final session, Live Your Best Life, where our inspiring guests will share their stories about seeking purpose and personal transformation. We'll hear from drag queen extraordinaire Nikki Doll, the inspiring model and advocate Bethann Hardison, alongside designer Bianca Saunders, and the TikTok sensations Lucky Blue and Nara Smith. To all our BoF professional members watching all around the world, see you very shortly. Goodbye.